always well, and I think the cutting room floor for these documentaries is usually packed with stuff that they think, we probably shouldn't put that in. Whereas in this, I can't imagine anything they've left out because it doesn't leave much to the imagination. They even have this cool little concept of, I think, real phone calls between like upper echelon management and executives that are just showed with little audio waves. And like off the back of the defeat, they were 3-0 up against Bayer Leverkusen and drew 3-3, and Pep made 10 changes. And the next scene is just one of these phone calls between the CEO and the director of football. Like, that's not good enough. You know, if this was any other manager, we'd be having a real conversation with him, and we'd give him the benefit of the doubt enough times. This kind of stuff. Nice. And then there's great pieces to camera with Pep, interviewer off screen. You know, just very well put together. And like you're waiting for it to relent and for the upswing of mood, and it just doesn't really come.
God, don't get my hopes up
here. I think it's one of the most revealing sports documentaries I've ever watched. It's based across his final 2 seasons. It has almost nothing about what's come before that, really. It's all based about the slide of Man City and how Pep is grappling with it on his own future. He does a few pieces of camera, but it's predominantly told through dressing room footage for the most part. And some of the interactions between him and the players I'm like, I can't believe we're actually being shown this.
Oh, man.
Like after the aforementioned Champions League game when he made 10 changes, he comes into them afterwards and he's like, I've given up my family for you guys, I've given up my wife for you guys. That was an absolute disgrace. It's like absolutely, basically I'm paraphrasing here, and you're like, well, I can't believe we're actually being shown this. Like, and at one stage he's like, I'm divorcing from the love of my life, we've lost our passion. Guys, we've lost our passion. I'm divorcing from the woman I love more than anything. And you're like, I can't believe we're being shown this. And he's just so revealing in a way that the Mourinho doc was the greatest hits, and it relied primarily on archival footage that was very vivid and colourful. Whereas this is the opposite. It's relying almost entirely on contemporaneous dressing room interactions and some very good interactions that Pep gives the director. And you can tell he obviously developed a rapport with the guy because he's like Kevin, like that was the director's name, Kevin McDonald, and very revealing, really good, very introspective. Talks about why it was time for him to leave. At one stage he just turns to the players, he's like, lads, I'm so fucking tired. I'm just so tired. I'm so tired. I can't do this anymore.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, because I just would have thought,
The Amazon ones are so plentiful and they churn them out so much that you can easily just walk by this and think it's another day in the office. But I'm telling you, and the episodes are short and punchy as well. They're like, the first one's about an hour because it covers 2 seasons ago, the really bad season, and there's 3 kind of 35-40 minute episodes to cover last season, and you'll fly through it and you'll be, I think, blown away by what you see.
Blown away.
Honestly,
as Dave Hanratty commented, I mean, like, is everybody giving us 5 stars? Okay.
Just one thing.
Yes.
Kevin De Bruyne's exit is covered very on the nose. They deal with it in a fashion you're not used to with these kind of documentaries, and then they also chart the process of replacing him and the data, and Ryan Cherky, who was his assist yesterday, was so good, but like how they arrived at him and why the fee was so cheap and the character, and it shows him and Pep having a phone call, like these kinds of things that you just aren't often alluded to but you never see in such vivid detail.
Okay, cool. So I said there's a feeling of Arsenal's to lose, and it does feel like that on this
Monday morning after Ireland.
The opening weekend.
Feels like Malaysia,
Manchester
though,
United
the weather.
in a kind of disarray against Hull City. And we must remind ourselves, Hull are favourites to finish bottom. They came up in the championship via 6th place. Practically a mid-table championship side with a good run in the playoffs. First time in 16 years a team in 6th has come through to the Premier League, and they beat Manchester United 2-0. So, just a lot of problems for United. It was just a very listless kind of performance, lacked energy, intensity. Like, you think when Carrick first arrived, and this was his MO in a way. Look what I've got. Look how I've got this team playing. The energy, the waves. Rainbow against Arsenal and City, and you put those performances side by side with what we saw on Saturday, and it's very worrying. Given the pictures for this guy for the next 2 seasons, maybe at least a year, 18 months. So he was asked about that. It's kind of an interesting interaction. In that the person asking the question
By aviation clips, I think it is.
International. He knows it well. And puts it in no uncertain terms to Carrick.
I guess in management there are so many buzzwords hanging around, like passion, intensity, and go for it. But would you accept that there was a lack of passion in the first half? Oh, come on, it's ridiculous.
Ooh.
No,
That's good enough.
that's
No
not
reflectors and
that's
nothing.
You play football. You understand. It's ridiculous to say just because you're big. Okay. No, I'm not saying that you cared about it. I think that the thing that get over.
Typical. The camera is making it look a lot brighter than it is.
I mean, I understand that you care about it, but would you accept that
It's kind of.
they took you on that front, so to say?
It's not dark. It's not bright. It's kind of dusky.
Same place.
And obviously it's raining and cyclists there with no reflective gear, no lights. I can't even remember if he was wearing a helmet. Crazy.
Would you say your team like that? I understand where parents are by the same token, and they become a passion. There is a lot of aspect to it. Work rate,
Energy, kind of.
absolutely, we're enjoying that. And certainly at the start of Carrick's reign, when reporters were falling over themselves in those other games, just saying, the energy went up there. You know, he wasn't like.
Still 15 degrees though, even though the weather is
So that's very weird.
wet. Here you go, another cyclist, no reflective gear, all dressed in black.
Just
Like fuck.
just
It's not Malaysia, it's Drogheda in Ireland. It's 30 kilometres north of Dublin.
No follow-ups. It'd be very good. But all to say the pre-season fears came home recently. 45
Does
minutes.
Drogheda
It's
look
the
like
worst case
Malaysia?
scenario opening day for Man United. They go to
Yes.
the bottom. Favourite team to finish bottom. Like the idea that maybe the Cardinals just a brief honeymoon after a really wretched reign of Ramrow, like that was like a possibility, but it looks magnified now. You know, the Rashford stuff we discussed before the season started, he came on and you know the body language wasn't great. He wasn't that impactful. Kind of the worst case scenario. The worst case scenario of so many different things on the table or on the show itself.
Yeah,
That's
well,
why
it rains kind of, well, normally pretty much every day in Ireland, so it's not really anything unusual. It's not heavy rain, like you wouldn't be. I wouldn't be expecting floods or anything like that, but it's just consistent kind of drizzle. Well, technically we're in Europe. Ireland's in Europe, so yeah. I'm driving on the left-hand side of the road as well. Ireland, yeah.
Serge had it in the back of his mind 3-4 weeks he was going to play a back five against United, but he didn't want to give any away in pre-season, so he went back four. But like he talks about it as they were watching them on pre-season and almost like rubbing their hands. Yeah, we've still got them. So you know, Coyle and Giles and backs just had oceans of space. We'll talk to Gary about it and see what what's going on here, or why can't they make a change, you know?
It felt like a cup tie, like it felt like a third round FA Cup tie in January where you might rock into this fervent full setting, and I suppose you can equate that to their first game back in the Premier League and they're going to be mad up for it. But it shouldn't have been lost on United, that was going to be the case. And it was true last year as well. They didn't beat any of the promoted teams away from home last season either. These are extended and extensive issues United face against teams who sit back. How long have we been talking about that? And equally, it's ironic that Michael Carrick is the manager because arguably he's the last successful midfielder they've bought. You know, he maybe probably level about Fernandes isn't really a midfielder. But they've been trying to address that issue for decades at this stage, so it's not an exaggeration. And you look at Man City, and we because see it works out, but they lost Rodri and Bernardo Silva, bang. There's Elliot Anderson, bang. Who are they're two £100 million plus signings. You know, they're not waiting around to see if we figure it out on the cheap. And United, like, I think Felix would probably come good as a player for them. And the Santos, I'm not sure. We can claim to have seen enough of him in depth. Blade, as you said, has a physical profile that would gel as well with Lee, so you'd like to compete. But except to what extent, like what is the ambition here? Because the signings they've made this summer aren't those of we want to get back within the top levels.
No, you could look at their summer transfer and say that they're bringing back here. It looks like they're bringing back to 10 ranks, they're bringing back to have a summer. And they're like, we're doing here, for sure. Liverpool drew 2-2 again, you know, along with City. The closest we think to chasing down Arsenal. It was okay. It certainly wasn't like terrible by any means. I know Gary Green watched the match. Like the fullbacks, there's a question mark, and obviously Gary Neville here, for instance, in Sky Sports, is kind of just summing up where people are with Isak. It's cost a lot of money, and now one season and a game.
The big thing for Liverpool is they've got this £250 million fund to. Bloody hell, we've been kind to them. We have been kind to those two. For a start, they're too nice. You know, and if you're going to be nice, you better be incredible at football. You know, I don't see the tenacity in Verts in particular. I mean, Isak a bit more, but in Verts, I just see sometimes I think he moves around too much. Sometimes I don't think he's close enough to his striker. Sometimes I don't think he understands where the game's going to be won and lost. The game's not going to be won back there. The game's going to be won in the final third, in and around the box, combining with your striker, getting crosses, getting little passes, getting little side passes down the side of the centre backs, being close enough to your forward so that you can combine with him. And I don't see combining with Isak.
It's interesting. And he can rescue the situation. And there's an hour in whether it go down and it's off you come. It's very damning to him, and then Isak is very confused.
Isak reminds me of Charles Barkley in Space Jam and started stealing his talent. Like the guy, the effort he had in the second half, and Gakpo he actually took a lovely position, kind of just maybe edge of the box, perfect position to get a strike on goal, balloons it miles over the bar. Like a striker with confidence, with his eye is either scoring or at least, you know, testing the goalkeeper.
I mean, the first time in real time I said, oh, he must have taken the ball. It was the only explanation for Shabbat effort, and I didn't know I didn't see it. It was inexplicable.
And I actually went back to double check his statistics for Newcastle to kind of refresh my memory. It's like, wait, did he score a lot of goals for Newcastle? Yeah, he 21 league goals and 23 league goals back-to-back seasons. So it's kind of like, was it in the mid-teens maybe? And it would explain why a guy who maybe hadn't quite hit the heights. But no, he actually had scored a lot of goals, but he was very ineffective yesterday. And obviously last year when he joined, he had the number of the pre-season and he wasn't fit and he got the leg injury. But he was at the World Cup in the summer, so like he should be, you know, and he didn't go deep in that tournament, so he should be sharpish and ready to hit the ground running. But I know that clip was basically about Verts, and that's a big conundrum too. But for me, Isak is kind of perplexing because it's making me doubt what I had seen with Newcastle. Like, was he good? Did I actually see him play well with Newcastle? Because he just doesn't look good with football at the moment. A Premier League striker.
In January, I think it's someone else saying, like, this is.
It was interesting what Neville said there about they've been kind to Verts, which I think is true because even the Athletic had their top 50 Premier League players before the season, and I think it was 9th or 70 high up. It was like Dave Henry's letterbox. You know, how can you justify some of these ratings? Because the talent is all there. I've talked about it ad nauseum. Nobody respects Lion Verts more than me. But it's so true. Like he's not doing it where it needs to be done. And I mentioned Cherky earlier, and just look at his assist for that goal when the chips were down, and this was basically Man City's last chance. He didn't rush it. He didn't drop in and get the ball in the position. He welcomed like 4 or 5 more players around him, nicked the ball through to Guardiola, and the finish followed. That's what you need to do. You know, and Cherky cost a fraction, a fourth of what Beard's cost. And the Liverpool's football executive potentially made this point before, but they're happy to take their laps of honour and pats on the back when things go right. And they saw the Salah departure coming, and people are like, they haven't replaced Salah, but they did know this last year. You know, they brought in Isaac, they brought in Ekatike, who isn't even factored into that lump sum alerts. And those are players who aren't, like, if Iriola
Just on the way to
he wouldn't have selected
Blanchardstown area in Dublin.
I'd say he's having eyes at the previous Liverpool forwards like Luis Diaz and Darwin Núñez. These kind of players would do damage in an Iriola team, and the profile of players he has to work with.
No, it's a fair point. Brentford, obviously, we should mention our boys. It is amazing. Andrews was on NBC television.
Nice, wet, typical August morning.
And just, are you enjoying life? That is really enjoying.
Yeah, I loved it straight away, really, I have to say, even though 12 months ago was far from easy. There was so much change at the club, staff, players. I have to say it's been a lot more comfortable.
It's 7 a.m. here in Ireland.
Less stress, but the bumps will come, the storm will come. Today's been a really good day, but I love what I do, and I think I love it because it's the group I work with every day. I love coming in every morning, I'm the sprinklers on the grass. There's good people that you work with every single day, and that's why I'm nice fit.
They were very good as well, as far as Gary was very bad. In his press conference, so that was on the pitch for TV after his press conference there. Obviously, somebody asked him if they could go from his presence.
He's got a lot of responsibilities. He's my number 2. He's a magnificent coach. He's brilliant support for me day to day. Someone I trust implicitly. Someone who's already built up a really good rapport with staff members and players. Undoubtedly, they would look at his playing career, but it's just a tiny bit of it for me that what makes him who he is. It's his craft and his coaching, the level of detail and his passion that I will work with every day.
Australia has so much technology.
Yeah, it's funny, you can't be talking about him without like this unlikely rise of the Danners. Like this time last year, everyone was certain they'd get relegated, and that he would likely not last the season. Now he's bizarrely in the top half for a long tenure. You'd say the Duff thing seems to really hit the ground running. Seems to be very well liked. Even just the little video of him walking off the pitch and the passion, like it's very interesting how he fits into that world, because he was the main character in the entire league when he was the manager. Like he can't really be that. They wouldn't even want him to be that. I know he says he likes his passion and wants him to be that, but we'll just see how he kind of fits into that. Seems to do a decent job so far.
Yeah, and Amadou Sangari, obviously, in 24, extraordinary debut. So, you know, well done football thing is like, well, you're like Emery, that's just very awesome. You know, it's very Konza, Rogers, Diggy, these guys all just really. And then Watkins, if he was going as well, so 6 of their starters gone at the end of the deal. I'm not saying it's getting to Unai Emery, but he was asked on Sky Sports, Watkins on the spot.
Obviously, there's no Ollie Watkins in the squad. What can you tell about that? Is that the end of his time here? Silence.
So I don't know. That's a group situation.
And then I just learn what his facial expression is there. He looked angry, annoyed, sad, like I don't know. Like you can't even blame the club. This isn't one where the club are penny pinching, and they have shown remarkable ambition. But they are just being, there are strictures there that are kind of outside their control, and it's very unfortunate because they've been ascending, and Newcastle kind of have been subjected to a similar vibe, and they came out of the blocks yesterday in a totally different manner. Yeah, but they've been bled dry as well in terms of their player group. and Villa got crushed it a whole other way. Like they just looked all at sea.
Yeah, it's extraordinary the extent to which Villa and Newcastle reduced on the Aston Street. And it's only just PS or I don't make you anything about it. But I guess the thing with Villa is that Eddie Howe said, I'm not sticking around for this. Will I am going to do the same. And it's, I mean, then you've got a horror season on your hands. So that's kind of us. Man City obviously plucked today from the fire against Bournemouth, but it was Mark Gay in midfield. They are bringing in now Bouadi, that 18-year-old Moroccan who everybody kind of loved in the world with his flowing hair. Just 8 appearances for Morocco. He was brilliant, but like have to hit the ground running, as is Elliot Anderson. We'll see. Erling Haaland's new season, new trim. He said,
Not a fan.
"Oh,
The source of his powers, I think, as well, have been gone.
thought he looked very well. I never liked his hair really.
I didn't like it, but it was him. It was his brand.
It was him.
It was like that Man United guy with the big afro. What's his name again?
Fellaini.
No, the
Sorry, the guy.
Fellaini.
Oh.
No, the guy. The go-to guy.
We're not mentioning that guy anymore.
Hull and Ipswich was a soft landing for that guy. He would
Yeah,
have
it would have had my opening too.
Obviously, he has his YouTube channel now, so you make content out of this stuff, and the haircut is very much documented. And then he rings around all his famous friends to get the verdicts. Grealish, you look 10 years old. I love it, said Grealish. Guardiola said, no way. You're lucky you have hair. I would love to have that. Love it. It's like a Conor Moore sketch here. Noel Gallagher said, you look about 17. It's good. Change is good, he said. And then Ibrahimovic said, you can lose a bet. Block me, erase my numbers. I like it. Ron, you can sort himself.
Oh yeah, I think he didn't help himself yesterday. It would have been a good way to start the new regime by banging in a couple of goals. He missed an absolute sitter where he just seemed to lose the flight of the ball, and the commentator Riley quick. Well, the hair didn't get in his eyes.
Do you know what? It can go one of two ways. David Beckham shaved the head, scored a free kick. Ryan Giggs, when he cut his locks, it was bad for the next season. So,
Source of his power.
That's one of these things. And see if Chelsea kind of rescue this sense of this could be a dud of the season.
Could be chaotically fun. That was a fun opening game. Yeah. I thought, the United game, the Liverpool game, the Spurs game.
But it won't be fun if Arsenal are 15 points clear by February.
It's much not.
The Kevin Keegan tribute yesterday was amazing. Did you see that?
Yeah, sorry. Wow, I forgot to mention it. It was incredible.
Because these things come and go. It was just a lovely happenstance that those two teams happened to play on opening day, and I thought it was just I couldn't have actually drawn up a better way to it. It was spectacular. And the game itself.
Fuel watch. 192 for
Keane
diesel,
would enjoy that.
183
Like,
for
yeah.
petrol.
So the red 7 and the red Keegan, famously that was the colour numbers on that Newcastle jersey in his time. I mean, the serendipity that Liverpool are red and like the Liverpool fans are up there for the Keegan, it was really amazing. Yeah, the drone shot really gave you a great sense of St James's Park. I've never been there. The best sense I had of the stadium.
Atmosphere was absolutely incredible.
Yeah, whoever thought that up, it really was incredible. Somewhat like this thing. Emails in Indo Sport Podcast. Your thoughts. Let's get to Gary.
Football is back. Time to wake up the group chat and catch up with old friends. With the groupie ones. What big? Hey, maybe you can have a sing-along. Because when football's back, so are we. Sky Sports is your home of football. Join us for over 1,500 matches this season across the Premier League, WSL, SPFL and more. Sky Sports, welcome to the show.
Fuel watch.
Well, Gary, welcome.
194 for diesel and 184 for petrol.
Weekend of Premier League football that was.
Well,
So-
I asked you and Damien Delaney in our bumper review last week, is there a chance Arsenal could walk the league? I'd like to rephrase that as it's hard to see anything else right now.
So yes, in terms of where Arsenal are placed, of course they look so strong. The signings that they've made as well look good, but that's not really the big story. It's just how much in transition, how much in flux their rivals are, and even like Manchester City getting that late home win, you don't look at them and think that they're going to cruise, and they're real difficulties getting past Bournemouth. You look at Liverpool in terms of how good they were going forward at times, not all the time. The final third pass, shot, decision making wasn't particularly good. It looks so open in midfield.
So between Drogheda and Ashburn,
and Tottenham were just
heading for
big stories
Ballycoolin.
of the weekend in terms of how poor they both were.
Yeah. Well, give us one quick word on Arsenal then, and we'll move on to those big stories. Havertz, Saka, Odegaard with the goals, 3-0, Friday night. Good vibes in the stadium.
Yeah.
Arsenal almost playing with a certain kind of authority and swagger of champions, and they know they're champions. So it was just like, it's just, you know, Declan Rice off you come after an hour, and just it's perfection really as the start goes.
Yeah, and we talked about it in terms of how the other teams looking from the outside, looking in at Arsenal, thinking they look so strong, they all know exactly their roles. There's so much competition for places within their squad. But, you know, we joked about Konza coming in at centre back and still not identifying their real issue at centre forward, but he strengthens them yet again. And it looks like Arteta, even in finding solace for that 30 million or so investment, when a lot of the talk at the time was Vinicius Junior coming in, you're just finding players that are just elevating that team slowly but surely. The squad looks so strong, they're in such a good place. And you're right, the Emirates has never, ever been as good a place as it is now to go and play at. The atmosphere is incredible. And there's a belief now, and it's just absolutely oozing out of everyone associated with Arsenal that this could be a real period of domination.
Yeah. Even that bloody song is really lacking, isn't it? They're ticking every box.
Well, it is, you know, because the song is brilliant. I don't know if you've heard the full version, but if you grew up around North London, it's so emotive in terms of what it actually talks about. But the crowd have taken on to it. And what I think, Joe, is that now even the commentators are stopping talking over it. You know, they never talk over, you know, the anthem song or any of the iconic songs, and now they're letting it breathe. And for everyone else looking at it, it probably is annoying, but for Arsenal, this is a fun to be a supporter.
And what are the lines? So, you know, North London, obviously, yeah.
It's just everything in terms of talking about the Cali down the King's Cross. Have you heard the song, Joe?
Oh yeah, you know, I have, but obviously I don't, you know, the King's Cross, it doesn't stir my heart when I hear the King's Cross, you know.
It's just so well written in terms of how, if you grew up in and around North London, listen, the Tottenham fans will tell you it don't stir that many emotions for them, but it's just so well written. And for Arteta, it's another stroke of his managerial quality in terms of just identifying that song and then putting it into the ground. There's so many little changes. In terms of what he's done the work there, Arteta, I know it was always a stick to beat with, he couldn't get over the line, but now he has. It kind of then opens up to everything else he's done in terms of slowly but surely strengthening that squad. I mean, that is an example to everyone else in terms of the fact that he got rid of players that he did not feel could contribute. The culture was completely wrong, whether it be Aubameyang, all those type of players. The level of quality of player was poor for a team of Arsenal. They were never going to win. And then Edu had come out and said, the sporting director, that this Arsenal squad is full of 26 and 27-year-olds who don't win. So he had to get all them out, and to do so, because he didn't have that financial muscle there, he had to let all those kind of young players who came through the ranks play. Now suddenly he's in such a position that it's unlikely that you're ever going to come through the ranks and make an impact at Arsenal because the level is that high. It might have to be an iconic, once-in-a-generation player like Max Downman who does it. Whether or not he still does it, we don't know because he's so young and there's so many pitfalls ahead of him as such. But it's just remarkable.
So that's the perfect start of Friday night. Next game is Saturday lunchtime. Manchester United away to Hull. I mean, it's, you know, it's worth stating. Obviously, it's, you know, away from home is a little bit tricky, but Hull are the favourites to be bottom of the league here. Hull are the first team in 16 years to finish sixth in the Championship and get a place in the Premier League. They are this United we're up against a very gentle start, all things considered, and they will be 2-0. What struck you about the performance? Like, what happened here?
Do you know what happened is that the Hull actually looked at United in terms of their setup, and I felt last year that Carrick, his assistant, Steve Holland, gave them a structure out of possession that made it easier for them to cope in a way that they didn't know what they were doing. They were 6s and 7s under hammering. You know, they didn't know exactly where they were supposed to be. Now suddenly they're 4-2-4. They try and put their front foot in a bit of a high press, make it difficult for you to play out. All the time and space, and then suddenly those two central midfielders were isolated to come forward from the pitch, can't get close enough. McBurney comes off his defenders and you think, surely go with him. He's not going to really threaten him in behind. They don't. And then they are up against him straight away. The lack of kind of physical presence in that Manchester United team was remarkable. And then with every passing minute, that whole team just played with energy, desire, physicality, and United just couldn't match it. It was incredible to see how that unfolded first game of the season.
And would it surprise you, or maybe more so if you're a United fan, would it worry you that they didn't make accommodations for that in the flight of character, make adjustments to team shape, that they kept?
Yeah, no, it would absolutely worry me. And I think Carrick, obviously, is an iconic player himself, but we think, well, at times it's all in a good looking to the bench, but they still got some really experienced players and just adjust slightly. But it was little things like balls up to McBurney, just weren't winning the first contact, suddenly then weren't picking up the second ball. So you think about Wermo and that chance where he's let the ball come to him and then the whole just swarm all over him, force the corner, they get in. And then, of course, the two goals. The most basics of defending is just balls into your box. And that is also, that's so often the kind of leveller from a team that comes up for the championships. If you just match that, you don't expect them to open you up in play as such, just match that physicality. And United will just off. But I just look at everything. And we touched on it, Joe, didn't we, last week, Day and I were saying about that back four. And we're kind of thinking about, there's a new era, there's a new manager, there's another chance for these players. But these are still the same players. They're still the same players that will revert to time that ultimately are good footballers because you don't play at the level you do if you're not good footballer. But they're not good enough footballers to get Manchester United back to where they think they belong and where they should be in terms of the investment.
Yeah, so if someone looks at the stats and sees United 70% possession, 21 shots to goals 8, 6 corners to goals 1, XG for what it's worth 1.81 United, 1.31 goal. Is it wrong to look at that and think, oh, United must have been quite good and on the front foot and we'll just suck it twice?
Listen, I love stats in terms of how you can use them, but sometimes you just have to watch the game and see how does it feel, how does it look. It never felt like that, did it? It felt like all sorts of problems. And I do believe that, these players, if you give them time and space, are very good footballers. We've seen it with Manchester City as well. We certainly saw it with Tottenham. If you think about their two centre-backs, they're brilliant at build-up play. But Brentford and Hull, Brentford also probably, ask him to do things that you needed to be able to do as an old-fashioned type centre-back. Is your first contact, your second balls, make sure you're physically strong, you don't let the game, the momentum of the game get away from you. And just look beyond United and Spurs. I get so frustrated with myself at times because obviously I'm experienced in terms of playing. And you can get something. I can understand it with sports where these new players come, especially at top of all the money they've spent, I'm thinking this is a new ball and it's get enough credit. I don't know why people don't suddenly start saying, well, listen, Brentford at home, that's no surprise to be top the way they are. They have been on the last couple of seasons, irrespective of all the money and the change of personnel.
So United then turn to kind of, because it is just...
Yeah, sorry, I keep going back. I can't help but see the similarities in terms of, United's the struggles that they've had over the last couple of seasons, despite both of them going deep into that European final a couple of seasons ago. It just papers over the cracks.
Yeah. So it's a continuation for United of everything you guys said last week. The defence isn't good enough. I mean, inside I didn't get the impression you were doing like any of their defenders. And then Tielemans and Sass in midfield probably flattered to deceive a touch. I mean, Carlos Baleba coming in is a very good, energetic player. He's really good on the ball, can get turns. I mean, he's an interesting addition, but he wouldn't be the first good player to go to United and somehow sink, so there's still a question mark there. Rashford in his return, do anything for you?
No, not really. In terms of, we're just going over old ground here. If Rashford runs around, it's a real shift in that he has ability to affect games. Whether or not he can do that, we'll see. I won't hold my breath as such, but even the fact that, he'll be fit, he doesn't start the game goal, you're kind of thinking, I just don't. I look at United.
Starting to clear up now.
I was so impressed with him against Leeds at Croke Park. He was so sharp. I thought, now this is different. But then I look at the setup of that team and I'm thinking, so many times United were getting into those kind of dangerous areas, put the ball in the box, and there was no one there. And Burma was often in right wing position crossing, and Cunha's coming deep at 10. So as much as you're thinking you're up against United, your first game of the season as a promoted team, I think that they look relatively comfortable. And John Egan in for it. I mean, I love that story about John. I really do. I think it's, it's indicative of his whole career. He had a dreadful injury as a young player. And he came back down to the lower leagues with Gillingham, fought all his way back up. He got another bad injury at Sheffield United. They kind of didn't treat him particularly well. Goes off the whole, a team that last year was expected to get relegated from the Championship. They do so well, and lo and behold, 12 months later, he's starring in a back three position. He looks so good there.
Yeah, it's great. One last one, like in Bomo, in those first couple of games for Carrick, he played through the middle and he looked devastating.
Yeah.
And then he just moved out to the right. I've never really understood that. Like, he looked like they need a centre forward. I mean, Sheshko was kind of, it was a massive question mark there as well. And Bomo was so good those first few games, and they just said, no, you're a right winger. Do you agree with that, or what's your read on that?
I know he can excel in those positions, but listen, needs muscle, right? Cunha, another fabulous forward player, but not an out-and-out number 9. And you're right to reference
technically in Dublin, I suppose. We're in Ballycoolin, just beside Blanchard.
Big centre forward. Bearing in mind, he looks like he's got half a stone in muscle. He wants to be that robust type centre forward. They're the type of crosses you dream of.
Oh.
He's such a mess, the headers, the two headers, and you think, as good as you are, as big as you are, as strong as you are, can't actually head the ball anywhere near the level you expect from a top centre forward or an old-fashioned number 9. And I don't know, it's easy to kind of like go overboard, and I know everyone will do in terms of United, but kind of like thinking last year, just giving themselves an opportunity out of possession, where there's a safety net, where there's difficult moments, just drop back into that low block. They just couldn't sustain it. They just could not repel how quick and energetic Hull were. And there were so many times, Joe, where the ball's going up to McBurney, and I'm thinking, okay, get tired. He's not going to run you in behind. You don't really want any balls coming into the box against him because he's a strong centre forward. And the Maguire, Heaven, who's got pace, they're dropping about 15 yards off him. And I'm thinking, no wonder Tielemans can't get anywhere near anyone in midfield because the space is too big.
Yes, yeah. Well, that's been a mad issue, a big issue. Which, for years when Maguire plays, they're way too deep. He just doesn't want to come out. So a final one then. It's very early days for this question, obviously. I know that, but bear with me a second. So they did switch next week, and then the fixture list gets
Just heading towards Amazon.
I still think it's crazy that Michael Carrick is the Manchester United manager. I mean, they started off like a train under him, everybody was happy and they're full of energy, and that was kind of like those wins against Arsenal and Manchester City, that was kind of so kind of good about it, like the energy. And Bruno, Bruno's released as 10, he's not stuck being a 6, and they're all happier and in a shape more familiar to them, but the facts are this: the performances tapered off the longer the season went on under Carrick. That is a fact. The performances did taper off, and this is a guy who has 19 Premier League matches to his name. I mean, Manchester United have a complete rookie as manager who would be nowhere near this job but for the fact he played for the club. Now, that is once again hard ruling head, and once again they're in this very strange position, and they haven't backed him up in the summer. So it's like, are we in? Are we out? What is it? It's a bad situation again, I think.
Yeah, it is, and it is early, and I took a bit of confidence in terms of Michael getting the job. The fact that he had Steve Holland, and I think he's a brilliant coach in terms of, so that's a great ally to have alongside you in terms of like where you're going. But you're so right to reference the fact that Joe, and those at the Emirates, United were brilliant that day against Arsenal. They were so good, and that performance against City was just like incredible in terms of the energy, the desire, everything. So once you see that as a decision maker in terms of whether or not he gets the job, you're thinking, listen, he's